Have you ever just been completely baffled by your own memory? Well, you're definitely not alone. Over the next few minutes, we're going to dive into the science of how memory actually works, and I'll give you some real tools you can use to build a much better one.
I mean, seriously, think about this for a second. How is it that you can remember every single word to a song you haven't heard in 2 decades, but you draw a total blank on what you ate for breakfast yesterday? It feels random, but it's not. The secret is all about how our brain first gets a hold of information, how it encodes it. And yeah, that first step, encoding, is everything. If you can understand this one single process, you've pretty much cracked the code on why we remember some things and, well, why we forget others. So, right off the bat, let's just get rid of this whole idea of having a good or bad memory. It's not some gift you're born with. Memory is a skill. And just like any other skill, it all comes down to using the right process. Okay, so if it's all about the process, what's the big secret? Well, it boils down to one simple idea: depth. How deeply you actually think about something determines how well you're going to remember it. You know, there's actually a scientific name for this. It's called the levels of processing theory. And the main takeaway is super straightforward. It's not about how long you look at something, it's about how deeply you engage with its meaning. That's the stuff that creates a memory that actually sticks around. And this chart here just lays it all out perfectly. On one hand, you have shallow processing. This is like just skimming the surface, noticing what a word looks like, what font it's in, how it sounds. That creates really weak, flimsy memories. But then you have deep processing, sometimes called semantic processing. This is where you're thinking about the meaning of the word, its definition, how it connects to things you already know. That's how you build strong, long-term memories. So get this. Our brains have two totally different ways of encoding information. One is basically on autopilot, doing its own thing in the background. The other one requires you to actually grab the steering wheel. First, let's talk about automatic processing. Just think of this as your brain's background software. It's running all the time, effortlessly logging stuff without you even trying. You know, like where you put down your keys, the sequence of events in your day, or how many times you've seen a particular person. It's super efficient, and honestly, we need it to just get through life. But for the things we actually want to learn and remember, you know, the important stuff for a test or a new language, a new skill, we have to switch gears and fire up our conscious learning engine. And that is effortful processing. And this is absolutely the key. When you deliberately and consciously engage with information, you're not just like saving a file. You are actively building a rich, complex web of connections in your brain. That focused, intentional effort is what forges memories that last a lifetime. All right, so theory is great. We know we need to process things deeply and put in the effort. But how do we actually do that? Let's open up the Active Learning Toolkit and look at some super practical techniques. Okay, our first tool is something called chunking. See, our short-term memory can only handle a few pieces of information at once. It gets overwhelmed pretty easily. But chunking is this brilliant little hack that lets us get around that limitation. For example, take a look at this number on the screen. Go ahead, try to memorize it. For most of us, remembering 12 random digits is next to impossible. Your brain just sees this long, meaningless jumble. But what if we organize it like this? 1492, 1776, 1945. All of a sudden, it's not 12 random things anymore. It's 3 meaningful historical dates. See what happens? By grouping or chunking that information into units that mean something to you, it becomes instantly unforgettable. All right, tool number 2 is something I bet you've used before, probably back in school: mnemonics. These are just clever memory aids. They create a little bridge between new, hard-to-remember information and something that's way easier to recall, like a simple word or a sentence or even a rhyme. And the great thing about mnemonics is how many different kinds there are. You can use acronyms, right, like HOMES for the Great Lakes. Or you can make up little sentences, acrostics, like "every good boy deserves fruit" for the notes on a music staff. Or you can just fall back on simple rhymes we've known forever. They all work the same way. They turn boring facts into something much easier for our brains to grab onto. And that brings us to our final technique. This one is maybe the most powerful and coolest of them all. It's an ancient method called the memory palace. The method of loci, or memory palace, works by hacking into something our brains are already incredible at: spatial memory. I mean, you can remember the layout of your house perfectly, right? This technique links the new things you want to remember to specific spots along a mental journey through a place you know like the back of your hand. So, here's how you do it. First, pick your palace. Your home is a perfect place to start. Then, you mentally place the items you need to remember in very specific spots. Let's say it's a grocery list. You could picture a mountain of apples piled on your sofa. Then, a river of milk flooding your kitchen floor. The weirder and more vivid the image, the better it works. Then, to remember the list, you just take a mental walk through your house and see all the crazy things you left there. So look, if you take just one thing away from all this, let it be this. Memory isn't something that just happens to you. It is an active process. The more deeply and actively you engage with information, the stronger your memory of it will be. Period. And now, you've got a whole toolkit to make that happen. You can use chunking to break down big, intimidating information. You can use mnemonics to create clever shortcuts. And you can use the method of loci to build a massive mental filing cabinet for pretty much anything. All these tools prove that a better memory isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. So the only question left is, what's the first thing you're going to build into your memory palace?